everyone, I'm Julie, also known as Naluknits on all my social media. I'm out here with my son. It's really nice weather here, so I wanted to kind of take advantage of being outside right now when we could. So you might hear my son in the background, hope you don't mind. Today what I wanted to do is I wanted to take apart a sweater that I have that I've never really worn because the neck comes up so high and I feel like I'm being strangled whenever I wear it. I bought this at H&M like a few years ago. It's a beautiful sweater, I love it. I just feel like I'm getting strangled, so I never wear it. So I thought I could reclaim the yarn, take it apart, and maybe make something that I'll actually wear. So I wanted to walk you guys through the steps that I'm gonna do. Just so in case you want to do this later, you can do this on your own sweater or find sweaters at thrift stores that you can take apart, or you could reclaim the yarn, okay? Okay, so there is an annoying shadow from the tripod that I just can't seem to get rid of, but we'll just work with it and hopefully it won't bug you guys too much. So for this, what you need is some scissors. The smaller tip, the better. And I have my Knit Picks yarn winder, skein winder, I don't know what they're called. This will come in handy later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the sweater inside out to start, just so I can see the seams. So when you're purchasing sweaters from thrift stores or wherever to reclaim the yarn, what you want to look for is how it's seamed together. So see how this is kind of braided? So I know that this was knit into pieces and then sewn together. Sometimes what you'll see is that it's like cut, and that means that it was machine made and then into like a huge piece of fabric, and then it was cut to be the pieces that it needed to be to construct the sweater. We don't want that because that's just going to leave you with strands of yarn. It's not going to be useful. And you also want to look at the fiber content. This is 90% acrylic, 10% wool. It's okay. The more wool, the better. But this sweater has just lived in my closet for years and I haven't worn it, so I thought I'm gonna try to take it apart and see what happens. So when you stretch it out, you'll see that there's a little thread. You guys can see a little thread going perpendicular than the fibers that kind of holds the pieces together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little scissors and I'm going to start snipping at that thread. I'm going to be careful not to cut any of the other yarn, just that little thread that you can see kind of holding the pieces together, okay? So I finished the whole side. I'm going to go to the other side. Now I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to stretch it out, look for that thread that's perpendicular, and then just cut it all the way up to the armpit, okay? So sometimes when there's tags, I'll actually stop unseaming and just cut the tag off. You see how there's like little threads that are holding the tag? So it's much easier to just cut off and then instead of trying to do that and unseam it at the same time. Okay, so it's pretty quick because the threads are very, very visible. It's sewing thread, not yarn, that they use to sew it on. Now it's off. And now I'm gonna go back to the seam. So we finished this side, we finished the other side, and now we're just gonna do the shoulders like we've been doing. So here you can kind of see, like I'm lucky that the thread that they use is slightly a different color than the yarn of the sweater. So I'm just going to go along the edge of the seam here and kind of snip at that thread, knowing that it'll unravel the sleeve of the sweater. Okay, so the armpit is a little bit tricky. Instead of starting there, I would start a little bit away from it. You can do the same thing where you pull and find the thread that's holding it together. It's easier when the sweater is right side out. So you can see the thread that's holding it together, or you can go along the side where you can see the thread that they use to sew along the side. Okay. So whichever way you want to do. With me, I'm going to go along the side because the thread that they use is slightly different color and it's much easier to see from this side. Okay, so we'll fast forward this section too.
Dude, you killing the mood. Oh, you being so rude. Get out of my way. Didn't come here to fight. Carry on with your night. Just stay out of my sight. Get out of my way. Didn't come here for you. Dude, you killing the mood. Oh, you being so rude. Get out of my way. Didn't come here to fight. Carry on with your night. Out of my sight. Get out of my way.
One sleeve done. Okay, I'm gonna do the other sleeve now. And then we'll pull apart the sleeves after that. Okay. Okay, short break while I help my son who got his head caught in something. Anyways, yeah, you just want to pick out all the threads that you kind of cut through while you're unseaming the sweater, because they're just going to get in the way when you frog. So I'm just going to go ahead and do all of the edges of this sleeve, and then we'll meet back so we can start frogging. Okay? Hello, we are on day 2 of taking apart the sweater. So I've already done a sleeve and a front or back, I'm not sure. Look how beautiful they are. What I have noticed about this sweater is that they did incorporate some elastic into the end of the ribbing, so I've had to cut that section off, but that's okay. It's just all part of the process. What is really nice about this sweater in particular that I got really lucky with is that once I undid all the threads, it kind of left all the live stitches that were ready to just like be wound up into a cake and become something different. So I have my little yarn winder set up, and I'm just gonna adjust the camera so you guys can see the table space a little bit more. Okay, so I have my yarn winder set up, and I have my piece that I'm frogging here. I am gonna fold it, usually this big. I'm gonna fold it so I can kind of stabilize it with my hand. So I found an end. I'm just gonna load it up, and I'm going to start frogging. So I have found that on the edges, where we took apart the seams, it's a little bit sticky sometimes, where I missed some threads. Like here's one, I missed a thread there. So it's not completely a smooth process, but it's mostly smooth, and I really can't complain because I'm gonna get all this beautiful yarn. You do not need a yarn winder to do this. You can actually do it by hand. I've done it by hand for years. I found that reclaiming yarn like this was a really awesome way of just kind of saving money on yarn. And it's just great because our clothing industry it's so much waste with our fast fashion that if we can reclaim some of the materials and turn it into something different, that's a really good way to use that resource. So when you do wind by hand, what you have to do is you kind of have to get into a rhythm of pulling it out and then winding it around your thumb, finger, pencil, pen, whatever you want to do, however you roll a ball. Okay. Since I do have this now, I'm trying to use it as often as I can and save my time, right? And you can see how it's kind of just, I have to stop every once in a while, get it to unstick. This yarn is single ply, so it did start to felt even though it's only 10% wool, so I'm glad it was mostly acrylic. This yarn is so fluffy that I feel like I might make a really like fluffy cabled shawl with it. Oversized shawl that I can snuggle in for the winter. I think that'll be really pretty. After I am done frogging it, I am going to measure it reps per inch just to see what the weight is, and I'm going to weigh it as well so I know about how much I have. And then when I do a swatch, I'm going to weigh the swatch, do a little bit of math, and figure out how many yards I have based on the weight of the swatch. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward the rest of this sleeve for y'all. Okay. So you can see that there's this little piece of elastic that's been kind of lining up with the thread. So I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to pull it so that it's out of the way, get as much yarn as I can. And there's a point where it just kind of bunches real bad. And that's the part where I'm just going to cut it off. I feel like that part is just not worth saving. So another sleeve done. So I'm going to do the rest of the sweater and then I'll show you all the beautiful yarn. So here's the final yarn that I ended up with, the front and back sleeves and just some random odds and ends from the collar and other parts of the sweater. So best practice would be that I would wind it into long skeins and soak them in water. And just let the fiber relax because you can see that it's a little bit kinked here from being in that sweater. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to do that. I might just create a sample and just start knitting with it. We'll see.